you're having faith that you are tapped in, right? And then from there, what you want is going to change. You're not going to have these goals that are going to be ego-centered. You'll be like, oh, I'm tapped in. Now what do I want? I'm always tapped in. Now what do I do? And that's the dance. Tapped in, direction. Tapped in.
Welcome to another Mind and Heart opening episode on Just Tap In. I'm your host, Emilio. And if you felt for a while that this center in your chest has felt very closed, you've been pushing people out, you've been neglecting yourself, you felt disconnected, you've come to the right place. Because today's guest, Danielle LaPorte, she's one of the most inspirational speakers that I've ever met. She's this radiant soul who has so much wisdom within her. And, you know, when we look back at Danielle's career, she's written incredible best-selling books like The Desire Map, which taught people how to create from feeling the emotions before the event happens and drawing their goals to them. Not necessarily setting goals like as we do in the New Year's resolutions, but teaching people a new mechanism of embracing our desires. She hasn't written a book in 5 years, but she just released her latest, How to Be Loving. And this is a book that I got the chance to read. And let me tell you, every single word is poetic, it's practical, it's needed, it lands in the moment that you need to hear it. And it's just like everything that I've heard Danielle speak upon. And there's no exception in this episode. It's filled, packed with genuine, authentic wisdom that I'm so happy to share with you. Even Oprah, she's invited Danielle LaPorte to the SuperSoul 100 group. This is a group that, in Oprah's words, is uniquely connecting the world together with spiritual energy that matters. Danielle also created the Heart-Centered Membership and the Heart-Centered Leaders Program with over 400 leaders in 30 countries. This book, How to Be Loving, it's been said to be medicine, and I've experienced that medicine right before doing this interview. It's come at a time where we see the world in a separation, in division, and people feeling this disconnect. And it's because we're disconnected from our heart space. It's disconnected from love, that frequency, the 528 hertz frequency of love. And this book is a guide to create the conditions for healing, just by tuning back into that center. So I'm so excited to share this conversation with you. If you haven't already, subscribe to this channel. We're going to be bringing on some of the world's greatest teachers of our generation. And if you want, like this video and share it with your family, share it with your community, share it with your friends. This is how we're going to spread a wildfire of love into the consciousness of humanity, which is much needed in today's times. So now we bring you the woman who has been named in the top 100 websites by Forbes and who Marianne Williamson herself calls a bright light, Danielle LaPorte. Danielle LaPorte, welcome to the podcast. What are you most excited about right now in your life?
Oh, right now. That was great. I mean, before we got onto mic, you said a beautiful intention. So yeah, I'm excited about having a lot of conversations right now about love and virtue and deep self-acceptance and all the things that like melt division and polarities and yeah.
I love that so much. And just getting to know a bit about what's going on in your life right now. You said you went on a radical simplification. You let go of, 70% of your things. And I feel like what you're talking about, self-acceptance, usually we look for that acceptance in what we have, what we can identify with, our house, our clothes, everything around us. And now that you're saying self-acceptance, I wanted to tune into that possibility for people to be able to simplify things in their life. As our brains have evolved, we become more complex. How can we return to a state of simplicity in such a chaotic world right now?
you have to have your priorities straight. So
Hmm.
I think for me, simplicity has turned out to be a spiritual practice. And that's the priority, is like, I want to be in sync with my soul. I want to make a contribution to the collective. I want to bring all this stuff up from the subconscious and make it conscious, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's consciousness.
Hmm.
And so there's a really practical level of simplicity, which is, why do I don't want to work harder to get stuff that I have to maintain, and all the just the management of material things, whether it's like shoes or a garage or whatever it is, or
Hmm.
even this applies to relationships too. Like, even I think a lot of us, we go through phases where we have these relationships. They're kind of like snack food.
Yeah.
They're like purses. It's like,
Okay.
we think hanging out with this person is going to get us where we want to go. Like, I've never been down with that theory. This is a pretty popular theory in this personal development space of,
Hmm.
you are the result of the 5 people you hang out with the most.
Hmm.
I just
Yeah.
always thought that was awful. Like,
I was
you
like,
know,
I'm my mom, my dad.
but how most people take that is like, okay, I got to be hanging out with a bunch of like super achievers and all these people I aspire to be. And it's like, well, what about your
Hmm.
friend that's broke? What about your relative that's really depressed right now? What
Hmm.
about people who are way less fortunate than you? Like, what?
Hmm.
So we're really missing the point, which is, you want to be radiant and loving no matter who you're hanging out with. And who you're hanging out with should not vastly impact whether you're going to be successful in your master's program, or how much money you're going to earn, or how you're going to serve your community. Like, self mastery is like, I am love and clarity of mind, no matter what's going on. I'm the eye at the center of the storm.
Hmm.
But back to simplicity. So less stuff to manage, less stuff to go after, um, fewer balls to juggle in terms of business. There's all that. But then simplicity in terms of, consciousness and spirit is just one path.
Hmm.
Just, we're all going to get home eventually.
Yeah.
I noticed that I was doing like a lot of different meditations. And this has been a journey for like a few years. It's like, work with the shaman and have an Eastern astrologer and a Western astrologer and all the supplements. And I
Hmm.
still am on a lot of supplements, and I realized that underneath that was this energy of like, I'm proving myself even to God.
Hmm.
And it's like, am I good enough yet? Am I spiritual enough yet? Am I achieving enough yet? And then wanting all these results. Like, it's like trying to get a result out of this conversation. It's like, this conversation is going to go where it's going to go. Your relationship's going to go where it's going to go. The intention is, you show up and you just be as honest and as loving as possible at all times. And that is super simple. It doesn't get more simple as that.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And things recently seem to have been almost the opposite, the polarity of all these teachings that are coming through right now for you. You talk about in the book that about this prophesized golden age that humanity is heading into, even right now, initiating stages. And I wanted to ask you, based on this new approach to heart-centered living, how can someone begin to understand that transition, going from the separation, the exclusion, to now become a species, more conscious species based on inclusivity and heart-centeredness, which I love that you're teaching that right now.
That's a big question about the big stuff. Well, the meta stuff is that every 2,000 years or so, humanity goes through these big transitions. Like, what was happening 2,000 years ago? Jesus the Christ was on the planet doing his radiance, his ministry. And look what that created. A lot of love, a lot of division in the name of love. Just
Yeah.
insanity, human insanity. And now, so here we are again. And how the mystics speak of it is this is a time where we move from my will, I want what I want for me, to a thy will way of living. Thy will being, it doesn't matter whether you believe in God or whatever, but thy will is like, there is a collective. We are all connected. We all come from the same source. Even if that doesn't work for you, just get down with the reality. We are all here at the same time. It's better if we look out for each other. And how I think, just to like bring it to the practical is, I think it begins in your own kitchen. And, you're embarking on a whole new level of education for yourself. Some of us are embarking on new levels of intimacy with partners or marriage or making babies or launching businesses, whatever. Who are you including in your vision of your fulfillment? Right? Like, and I'm always saying, you can want what you want to have. Want the success, whatever that looks like for you. But two things. What's motivating your vision? Is it, I want to prove myself. I want to get the love from my father that I never got. I want to earn divine favor. I want to get into heaven. Whatever it is, I want to look good because I've always felt like a loser underneath, whatever it is. So that's your shadow self. That's your ego coming up with a goal. And it is going to have you run so hard for that. And when you get there, that ego mind, that wounded self is not going to be happy. Okay. So you press pause on that. You could have the same vision, all those things, all those versions of fulfillment. And that vision could be coming from your heart, where you are in that state of like, wow, my happiness is connected to your happiness. And I feel the trees and I feel the pain of my mother. And that could be me on the street corner. And from that, I want to be successful. I want to be well. I want to be healed. I want to be a healer. I want to make the money. I want to donate. I want to lift up my community. It's very different. And I've been really thinking a lot lately about what happens when we get what we want. And what we wanted is from the wounded self, or what we wanted is coming from that heart-centered, ness that you mentioned, is that because manifestation is just a technology, right? Like you have the vision, you feed the vision, you do the thing. Because we all know lots of people who they're great at manifesting. They pull it off, whatever it is, But they might not be, we know that there's like an emptiness.
Yeah, like trying to prove ourselves through our manifestations and the things we achieve.
Yes. And so you see the guys who pull off the big stuff. We see this a lot in our, the influencer space, right? And I have these conversations and I'm just like, bro, like, are you happy? And they're like, no, I'm really just trying to like get my dad to say that he loves me or something. Or they don't realize they're not happy yet. Or not, they're still unhappy and they crush the goal. And then it's the next thing and it's the next thing. I'm just like, you have the stamina, but like, isn't this exhausting to the spirit? I think what happens is when we go after things from the heart, meaning I want to serve and I feel connected to life, then we can get the money and it comes with a bonus. It's like, it comes with peace. You get the goal and it's peaceful. Like we actually rest in the accomplishment. And that has all sorts of beautiful things happen. The nervous system relaxes, your relationships are deeper. Whereas when we have the ego-centered achievement, there's no rest. Your nervous system is still jacked. You probably have some other addictions happening, substance or otherwise. Heart visions are the only way to go if you want to be fulfilled. Yeah.
And you talked about in your book that when you make stuff from love versus from the ego, it's a completely different energy that you're kind of gifting to the world. Even whether it's a book, whether it's, a podcast, a creative project, if it's coming from ego. And I've noticed this in my personal life, when, for example, if I'm reaching out to a new guest, and if there's like that slight, ego, like, oh, I want to prove people that, this big guest is going to come on my show. No response at all. So now, now every time I'm about to reach out, like I literally do a meditation. I tune into my heart. Why do I want to do this? What is this episode going to bring into the collective and the younger generations? And usually those manifestations happen instantaneously. I'll get like an email the next day. Sometimes it's even happened that quick. And something that I was reading on your website, which you drop a lot of truth bombs on the website, which I love. And one of them that really stood out to me was, if you know what's sacred to you, you can wait. Because speaking on manifestation, it's like we want it all that like quick. We want it super quick. But what do you mean when you say we can wait, and knowing like if that thing is sacred to us and our priority, why should we be more patient with our manifestations?
Well, I think patience is you being tapped into this universal intelligence. Like if everybody was aware right now that it was possible, that on some level, actually, all of us are tapped into this higher mind where it's beyond intuition. Like you will be guided on the next best move. You will know what to say. You will be performing at your peak level, whatever that means to you. And if we just knew that, like, that's a given, you have universal mind on your side, like you are hardwired to like this cosmic genius, then what's to worry about? Like you chill. You're just like, I am made of the same stuff that powers waterfalls and innovation and the golden mean and all these things, and you're just like, A, I'm going to find a way. B, I'm going to magnetize what I need to magnetize to me to be fulfilled. And it's inevitable. You know that the arc of the universe is always moving towards healing and expansion. You're going to have what you need. You are only ever getting stronger. You're only becoming more conscious. You are always getting closer to source. Like, then just relax. That's patience. It's you really. And I think patience is often thought of as, what's the word? Like it's lax. It's a bit kind of a little bit
like relax.
It's not active. It's passive. That's the word I'm looking for. Patience isn't passive. Yeah. Patience is like you got to be so lit up,
receptive in a way.
So receptive to life. So it's this dance. It's like, I know things are unfolding. I know there's a purpose. Okay, what's the purpose today? Where am I going today? Okay, make that phone call. Patience is so related to faith, right? They're like sisters. And faith, I mean, this even discussed sort of on this biblical level of, this isn't the exact quote, obviously, but it's like, faith without action is just foolishness. Yeah. So it's like, yes, I am a child of the universe. The universe is supporting me infinitely. Okay, I got to send the email. But you don't send the email without the faith. Like, I think in this space, we have it backwards. It's like, first we come up with a goal and we're like, okay, I'm going to have faith that I'm going to pull it off. No. First you have faith. It's like, I am on purpose. Remind me the name of your podcast again.
Just Tap In.
Just Tap In. So it's like, you're having faith that you are tapped in, right? And then from there, what you want is going to change. You're not going to have these goals that are going to be ego-centered to be like, oh, I'm tapped in. Now what do I want? I'm always tapped in. Now what do I do? Yeah. And that's the dance. Tapped in, direction. Tapped in. the problem is, we, instead of turning to our soul for higher guidance, the best resource there is, we look outside of ourselves for influence and guidance.
And one of the energies or characteristics that you were tapping into was courage. So I wanted to know how courage has been related to this. We talked about having the awareness that we're connected to the universal mind and faith that we can achieve whatever is in our heart desire. Where does courage play a role in all of that process of creating?
Yeah, well, many of us are familiar with the origin of the word courage, which is cœur from French, of the heart. And I think courage is closely related to patience. If you move through the world from the heart in a heart-centered way, that I'm here for love, loving kindness is my way, I'm connected to everything, then you're going to have what you need to speak truth. You're going to know that even if you don't get the response you want to you speaking truth, you're going to be okay. You're connected to something greater. Life is unfolding. Yeah.
And I wanted to ask you based on those lines, you talked a lot about in your book, How to Be Loving, acceptance. So even knowing this, that we're connected to the person on the other side of the screen, love is what separates, not even separates, it's what unifies us in this material world. And what happens when we place all our expectations on someone else to be a certain way or mold them into our projection of what we want them to be? And for example, we'll say that, I love you to a certain person, and we don't get that response. How can we begin to, you said that in the book, you said intimacy melts illusions. So we have this illusion of separation. By us placing the intention to be more intimate with the people in our life, how do we dissolve also the expectations around being intimate with someone that we want to be intimate with?
Well, you have to be intimate with yourself. So I was just having this conversation this morning with my partner, and he was saying, because I was like, I think, maybe it's time to go to the next level of like, what's in the basement of your psyche? Like, let's go to the next level of your shadow. And rightly so, he said, like, I've looked at all the childhood stuff. I've done that. I was like, yeah, I've done that too, right? Lots of therapy and family of, this is what happened, community, family, la, 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 and that you repeat the patterns. But self-intimacy is like, okay, what's the big theme that's still causing chaos in my life? It's like, it's the same situation with this person in my family. And I'll use myself as an example. Like one of my themes used to always be like, I'm not seen. You don't understand me. You're not paying enough attention to me, and I put that kind of in a whining voice, humorously, but like it was a deep source of pain for me for a while. Yeah. And that some of that comes from like how I was raised and what I got and what I didn't get and all those kind of things. And I did all the healing of the early stuff, but it still shows up. It's a theme that haunts me. And I think our core issues, we're born with them. The soul says, okay, let's work on this topic of being seen or neglected or abandonment or belonging, or like whatever your thing is, you pick your thing before you enter. Yeah. And then you magnetize all those original situations. It's not like your family. Yes, that's right. It's not like your family messes you up. It's like you came messed up. You came with this, the self as project. Yeah. And you get your family to say, let's help you work on this project. Let's give you lots of material. But back to your question about intimacy. So I think self-intimacy is looking at what causes you pain and suffering and why again and again and again and again. Whether it's, you have a podcast conversation and you didn't quite like it, or why? What's that little, sting or discomfort? What is that? It just, that's it. And then what happens is you get softer with yourself. You get more gentle with yourself. Oh, look at baby Emilio, wounded Emilio, sad Danielle, whatever it is,
Yeah, I have a picture of him on my desktop in the computer. I just pull it up and I'm like, bro.
That's the way to do it. That is so the way to do it. Because I'm going to guess you're in the practice of, you see little Emilio and you're just like, what a sweet, what a sweetheart. It just evokes love. So this is a great example. You having that picture of your younger self on your phone is an act of love. And you will become more gentle, awake, and loving, hopefully, ideally, every time you engage with that picture consciously. And I'm sure you look at it 100 times a day. You don't think anything. That is going to create more intimacy in your relationships, because you're going to be having a conversation with someone who could be 3 times your age, or it could be some hot woman that you want to get with, and they're going to do something not cool. They're going to be a little bit arrogant or needy or selfish. And you're going to think, oh, little so-and-so, they're just wounded too. And you'll be softer because you were more gentle with yourself. And that's when the love is really rolling. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was listening to a previous interview you did, and you said that the medicine that the planet really needs right now is that gentleness that you're talking about, paired with curiosity. So
should I say that? That's good. Gentleness and curiosity. Yeah.
Gentleness and curiosity. And I resonate a lot with that because, I used to be very stubborn with my opinions. And before I even started reading a lot, I was so highly opinionated about, a lot of different things. And I didn't even know half of what I didn't know, And curiosity was a superpower for me. It still is. I always lean in with that, what is it like to be inside this person's body and consciousness? It's very, it's a powerful medicine that you're talking about, being gentle with ourselves and with others, and also opening ourselves to get to know people with this deeper layer without the mask that we usually present ourselves with. I think it was when you said, I was looking and you were talking about how our all-time distractor from looking at our shadow selves, looking at and doing the shadow work, is maintaining shallow relationships. You said if we're not going deep into our key relationships, then we're not going to go deep into ourselves. Right. So that's what I was kind of tapping into when talking about shallow relationships. Like, what do we do with them? Because we're gonna have a lot of them in our life. Do we kind of avoid them? Do we embrace them? How should we manage those shallow relationships?
Well, you can only go as deep as somebody else wants to go. I mean, it's a relationship, it's a dance, right? So are you dancing with someone who every time you make a move, their body is saying, I don't want to go that way? Well, then you can't dance, right? Or are you dancing with someone who's like, all right, let's lean in. You lead, I'll lead. Let's move. Let's change the music. So it really takes two. And you can only have shallow relationships in your life. You can have multiple shallow relationships. It's all going to depend on how deep you go with yourself. And you will see if people can go there with you or not. I mean, my experience is, I've been through some great dark nights. And I noticed that people who hadn't really plumbed their own depths, they couldn't go there with me. There were some friends who they backed away. They were curiously busy when I was really broken up.
Mm-hmm.
And I had some judgment around that. Of course, like, I need you. And where are you? And then you let it go. You're just like surviving. And then you get to the other side and you're like, oh, you couldn't go there because you hadn't gone there yourself. It's like asking someone like take you through a city that they don't know. That's okay. You had to just meet me in the cafe. And then I got to a place of just like, whatever. We're all still great friends. And, but I think if you want to climb, you got to be with a climber. Get to that mountaintop. Yeah.
And also the greatest revelations in our life come from this place of purity, like just pure simplicity. Going off the topic we opened up with, simplicity. And I was really curious about, when these newer teachings that are coming through right now, for you, what was one of those great revelations in your life that kind of sparked all this awakening and transformation? Because I know that you were at a moment where you didn't know if you wanted to continue your creative pursuits and things like that, if you wanted to keep writing, and then things just started clicking.
Did they start clicking? It's a daily thing, right? So it's not, I used to always wish for a near-death experience. So just
I'm so curious about that. I'm like contacting people that have had near-death experiences.
Right.
Yeah.
We can try. I got a great book recommendation for you. Actually, anybody listening right now who's interested in near-death experiences, I read a lot of books, did a bunch of homework. And then for years, a friend was telling me to read A Testimony of Light. A Testimony of Light. And I was like, I read all the NDE stuff. I'm good. But this is just a really beautiful account of this woman's experience of mansions of light and sort of that, cosmic university we go to when we're, in between lifetimes. Anyway, day-to-day decisions, day-to-day dedication. But I tell you, one of the most powerful teachings I've come across in years comes from Hermetic philosophy, often called Kemetic philosophy, Egyptian stuff. Yes. And it's 3 teachings that they kind of bundle up for you. God neither punishes, nor rewards, nor protects. So he, she, it is not punishing you, not rewarding you, and not protecting you. And this is like, bazam. Like there's so many paradigms in that get busted that are like around organized religion and even New Age perspective of like, God is protecting me, right? So then the question is, well, if God's not rewarding me or punishing me or protecting me, then it's me. It's all in my hands. Yeah. And this gets into so much mystical stuff, like Yogananda stuff of just like, yes, we all have karma, but take it into your hands and just burn through it. You don't have to let your karma hold you back. And God does not want you to suffer. God would never punish you. Like, a whole truly loving parent would never intentionally punish their child. Never. You can get into a whole conversation with discipline, but it's not punishment. So that kind of blew my lid off. And I'm just like, okay, I've been punishing me. I have been punishing myself, all because I thought that was going to like shift my relationship with God, or this was the cosmic thing to do, is to, incur, if I do that, I'm going to get karma. That's not how karma works at all. And I can reward myself. I can have, even though the world is falling apart right now and so many people are suffering and they're suffering in my own life, I can keep making choices for joy and keep creating conditions of healing. And I want to be I get to have that, that it's my true nature. I also want to be the antidote. Things are falling apart in the world. I want to be steady. If you're suffering, I want to be a source of healing. I'm going to do that. And protection isn't about being armored or over boundaried. I think love is our greatest protection. But I can do what I need to do to protect myself. I can be kind, which rebuffs a lot of negative energy. And then I can ask for help for protection. I can turn to my unseen sources. I can turn to God and say, okay, help me out on this one. But I'm taking responsibility for it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love that you brought up Yogananda, because as I know you said you're a recovering Catholicist, and also I grew up Catholic but never really going to church. The whole thing of like, what do I even believe in? And that led me into spirituality, and now this whole individual path of seeking out wisdom and finding the wisdom within me. But Yogananda, especially, he mentioned this quote in the book. He said, suffering is caused by the misuse of one's own free will. Not that God rewards or punishes everyone, but it's our misuse of our own free will that causes suffering. And that's a complete paradigm shift, because it goes from victimhood to now like we're more empowered, because it like, who else controls our free will but ourselves? And that was mind blowing when I read that.
That's a juicy one, isn't it? Yeah, you got yourself into that. You got whatever it is, whatever the bind is or the agony. And, all of those, the awakening from those sufferings are what brings us to God. Right. And I think also what Yogananda is saying there is, this goes back actually to the part of the discussion about the bonus that you get from achieving something that came from your heart. Because when you achieve something that's ego-centered, there's going to be suffering involved. It's like all that work to get that car, to launch the business, to score in whatever material way, and you get there and you're like, I did all this and I still got to work harder. I'm still empty. I still don't feel close and loved, successful, whatever it is. There's the suffering. That's because you misused your free will.
Yes.
You got all this talent, and some of us have all this privilege, or we have all this love in our lives. All these different forms of privilege.
All this abundance. And
yes. Some of us are like so well raised and so well loved, and we don't use that for the betterment of everybody. Yeah. We're just
why is that?
Because we believe in the illusion that we're separate. We believe that we have to prove our worth. Like, I think the whole conversation around, am I worthy, am I unworthy, is actually a ridiculous conversation to have. It's like, of course, your mother would never say, you're kind of worthy today of my love. We're not so worthy at, 5 o'clock. It's a given, of course.
Yeah.
Mamas want to love unconditionally. That's how God loves. Like, let's not even have a conversation about what you're worthy. It's like, well, now what are you going to do with all the love that you have? Oh, you're going to go love some other people. Great. But your question is, why do we get off track? We just believe. We believe lies. We believe lies. Yeah.
We forget who we are.
Yes. I think that's the deal when you incarnate. Like, okay, you're this soul hovering over your choice. And you're just like, all right, going in blind. I'm going to forget that I'm actually divine and connected to everything. I'm love itself. I have, infinite capacity. I'm going to forget all that. And then I'm going to make it through this crazy dimension until I go, oh, I just remembered. Love is on my side. I got this. Yeah.
Yeah. Dr. Joe Dispenza, he says, how many times do we have to forget to stop forgetting and start remembering?
Yes.
And it's this process. And I think, tools of transformation, like the ones that you're putting out, are these kind of, seeds of remembering who we are. I read that you wrote this book, How to Be Loving, as like a love letter to help us remember the light within us and being, in community toward this process of remembering. And I can't even imagine what a species would look like when we all remember who we are and we're all doing, the work we were here to do.
What do you think it's going to look like?
I just think it's going to be a time where I think fear, survival, all these lower emotions will be able to, I don't think we'll fully eradicate those emotions because it's part of our souls being incarnated right now in this material realm of like, we have to experience the darkness in order to remember that it is all light. It's kind of that dualism, the realm of the realm of duality. But more, I think we'll be able to see problems or things that we need to solve in the world from a higher level of consciousness, from a place of heart-centeredness, as you've been talking about, from a place of, we may perceive things as separate, but I think maybe our senses will heighten to the point where that separation is seen as more of an illusion, and it won't even feel as real as we might feel it right now. Because what makes it feel real is the survival, is the fear, when we're further away from unity, from love. So I think we'll just handle things in a completely different way, and we'll interact with each other in a completely different way.
I love all that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm down.
Danielle, we end every podcast with a segment called the Final Trio. They're like rapid fire questions that
I love rapid fire.
you can answer in any way you want. And before that, I would just love for you to leave people off with, where they can get to know more of your work, where they can buy the book, pre-order the book. This will come out in, October. So I think the book will already be out. Yeah. So if you want to tell people, whatever you want to send them to.
DanielleLaPorte.com. I'm there, and I'm on Instagram. It's kind of the center of the universe. And I have a membership program called Heart Center, where we have, it's really like a spiritual support system. It's a beautiful community. And then I have a leadership program, Heart Centered Leadership, where people are using this curriculum around virtues, and they're using it for coaching and HR development, and it's really cool stuff. Yeah, that's where I am.
I love that. And the first question is, if you were to tune into, the higher councils, the unseen realms, the beings that you receive inner wisdom from, what is that highest counsel that you've ever received from your inner wisdom?
No conclusion is foregone. I've heard that a lot. I was like, what does that mean? But I just think it's the nudge to just keep opening my mind, keep my mind open. The heart's always open. Just keep my mind open. No conclusion is foregone.
That's powerful. Especially, you said we're in a pandemic of closed-mindedness. So I think the antithesis of that is just like having conversations like these where we can kind of open our minds to the possibilities of what's possible. The second one is related a bit. We've heard so much about like boosting our immune system and supplements we've been talked about, but I wanted to hear about your protocol for strengthening our spiritual immune system.
Stillness, counterintuitive, but stillness. And I practice what I call a stillness sandwich, which is like still in the beginning, and then you rock and roll and you do your day, and stillness at the end. So stillness at the beginning of anything, whether it's like a project or your day or a relationship or, a creative endeavor. It's like, okay, just stop, ask for and listen for higher guidance. Where should you go with this? How should you show up? Okay. And then go do your thing. Like, be in this dimension. Check things off your to-do list, sure. And then stillness at the end of a project or a conversation or the day to like really integrate, like, what did I learn? It's actually a huge act of consciousness at the end of the day to say, okay, what did I learn today? Because then you don't have to get the same situation tomorrow for, your soul to get the lesson. It's like, I integrate it. It's really like Shavasana, where we integrate the learnings. Stillness. And listen, we have to meditate. There's no way around it. If you're not meditating because you don't like it, then I'm just going to lovingly suggest you probably haven't found the right meditation practice for you yet. Just keep looking. It's like finding the best food for your body type. Everybody's different. So but you've got to be doing something to calm the mind and connect with the higher. And just see what's there. That's what it's for. Just see what's really going on inside of you.
Yeah. On meditation, I've been doing a lot of Dr. Joe Dispenza, and there are long meditations. I realize that and I've also heard you talk about, like, it's not about how long they are, and it doesn't matter the time. But I realized that the 5-minute ones, 10-minute ones that I was doing on apps like Headspace, although they're great, I think to start with, I wasn't able to enter a state of heart and brain coherence in such a short amount of time. I think any spiritual guru will be able to drop into that state, for, days on end. But starting out, I think just getting to that state of heart brain coherence is key in any meditation.
Yes, this is a great point. So, you say a master could drop in right away. That's because that master has spent years meditating.
Exactly.
And I think with the apps, they're a great starting point. But if your focus is on, I only got 7 minutes, so I'm going to do this, then the focus is on, I only got 7 minutes. Whereas if your focus is on, I'm going to connect, and today I only have 7 minutes. That's different. Yeah, because then the next day, someday when you have the time, you'll be like, wow, this is delicious. I'm going to sit for 20 minutes. Yeah, and it isn't about the length, but you do need to get into coherence, as you say.
I love that. Third and final question, Danielle. This question kind of came up for me intuitively in a podcast I just did with Dr. Teresa Bullard. She's a PhD physicist, but she's also into like the whole mystical Kabbalah, Hermeticism. And I want to start doing this. I'm going to start doing this question regularly on every podcast. I think it just encapsulates anything that we've been talking about. And we kind of have to travel a bit into the future. Let's say 10, 15 years down the line. And you were given the opportunity to leave a time capsule for the next generation of leaders. So looking far out into the future, Gen Z, my generation, will be more present in leadership positions in our society. And you were to leave a time capsule, and these next generation leaders were given the opportunity to dig that time capsule up, and they would open it. What would you include in that time capsule? It could be anywhere from a book, a poem, anything physical, anything symbolical, any word like affirmation, anything that you would want to include in there for the next generation of leaders to spearhead this, transition into the golden age that we've been talking about.
I would just have a note that just said love. Yeah, because that's it. Be the love, do the love. Please love, 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 love. And everybody got to figure it on their own anyway. Right?
That's so true. Yeah.
So, yeah. And hydrate, stay hydrated.
Any question that you would leave them with to reflect on contemplate on their life?
It would have something to do with being in alignment with their soul. Like, I wouldn't phrase something initially, I want to just ask, when do you feel closest to source? But everybody, then you get into definitions about source and all of that. I think it would be, when do you feel in alignment with your soul? When do you feel close to love? When do you feel loving? How do you know
Yes.
you're loving? I don't know. I need a minute on this one, but I think just love.
Oh, that's so great.
Yeah.
Danielle, thank you so much.
It's
I really
mutual.
appreciate the work that you're doing, your mission. Even being able to, as I think you said, crush your gimmicks, because you went from Desire
Mm-hmm.
Map, which is all about feeling. This
Mm-hmm.
book is about embodying love and being that source of love. So thank you so much for taking the time with us today. I would love to do this again. You're such a bright soul for our generation and the world. And I really appreciate the time we shared.
Oh, you are a light. I am game for another conversation, and I'm totally here to support you. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Appreciate
Thank
that.
you.